Wonderful good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back here at the group exhibit Hydrogen Fuel Cells and Batteries. My name is Mona Lee and I'll be your moderator for the next 15 minutes. Also, I'd like to invite you to come and have a seat and have a complimentary drinks. There's a lovely lady, she's walking around and serving you with drinks. Also, I'd like to say hello to all our online guests. We are live streaming from the fair here at the Hanover Fairground. The next topic that we'll be discussing here on stage will be the rollout of a hydrogen infrastructure in the UK. For that, please welcome with me on stage the CEO of ITM Power, Dr. Cooley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Have a seat, please.
Thanks.
So ITM Power is a company name that we've heard of many times already, and I just heard by the founder of the fair that ITM Power is doing most successful in the industry. So could you briefly give a company info and what your business interests are?
Yeah, so we're interested in deploying rapid response electrolysis. So we make units, electrolysis units. They're units that take in water and renewable power, and they make renewable hydrogen, and they make the hydrogen on site. They're rapid response so that you can use them for energy storage. That means you can use them for grid balancing. The requirement is to turn them on and off in less than a second. We make electrolyzers at the right scale for power to gas energy storage, which is a utility application. This means you use the electrolyzer as a dynamic load to balance the electricity grid, make renewable hydrogen, which then you can either put straight into the gas grid, which is a technique called power to gas energy storage, or you use it for fueling fuel cell electric vehicles. So not only fuel cell cars, but we have now more and more buses, trains, forklift trucks. So a wide range of vehicles to refuel, but key to all of this is the principle of using hydrogen as an energy storage medium for both decarbonising transport, but also heat by putting it into the gas grid.
And then what was ITM Power's motivation to focus on hydrogen as an energy carrier?
Yeah, but the development of some, I think, very important technology. It's actually quite difficult to make an electrolyzer that's rapid response and self-pressurizing, and to do it at the megawatt scale. And in fact, at the fair yesterday, our CTO made a presentation announcing our 100 megawatt designs. So it's on a truly industrial scale.
And then do you also produce fuel cells?
We don't make fuel cells, no.
And then your electrolyzers that are already being utilized, on what fuels are they running?
Sorry, say that.
Sorry. And then the hydrogen.
Yeah.
Do you also provide hydrogen?
Yeah. So look, we build, own and operate refueling stations, and we also sell refueling stations. So we have two models really. One is raising money from grant funding or private funding to build refueling stations, and we build, own and operate the refueling stations. That means we identify the sites, we get the planning permission, and we deploy and we sell the fuel. That needs grant funding. And you do that for infrastructure refueling stations because they're not highly loaded, because there aren't the number of vehicles that you require to make a commercial proposition. However, with buses or with trains or forklift trucks, it's more commercial. You can finance those because you have a high utilization of the refueling station.
And that is why the transportation industry is probably leading in terms of hydrogen technology?
Yeah, I mean, the needs for hydrogen are primarily about decarbonising fuels. They're also about air quality in the cities. So if you're going to run a transport system that's zero emission, you have two ways of doing that, both using an electric powertrain. You can put the energy into the vehicle with electrons, or you can put the energy in as hydrogen. Okay, now the advantage of putting the energy in as hydrogen is that the refueling times are much less and the range is much more.
But it seems to me that batteries are much more trendy right now.
Yeah, fashion's an interesting thing, isn't it? I do agree with you. Actually, starting from a sort of higher place, I think energy is very misunderstood worldwide. And energy policy and the strategies that you use for energy are badly understood by politicians. And I think batteries are obvious. You know, when we're children, we have this thing and it stores electricity. So when people think about energy storage, they think about a battery. They don't think about a huge tank full of fuel, or indeed a whole network of pipelines full of gas. That's energy storage as well. Okay, you just have to know about the energy industry to understand that the gas industry is 3 times the size of the power industry in the UK. If you want to store excess power somewhere, then the gas industry is a marvellous place to do it. We own that infrastructure already, and we get paid to put renewable gas into the gas grid. So actually, if you wanted a strategy for storing energy, the best strategy of all is to use an existing asset that's at massive volume that you already own.
So that would be the gas grid, the power to gas. And then in transportation, well, I can't carry all the gas with me, right? Or just how would hydrogen infrastructure work?
Yeah. So look, one of the reasons we're interested in electrolysis is you can make the hydrogen with renewable power, but you can make it on site. And if you make the hydrogen where you use the hydrogen, then you need less storage. Okay, so you need to think about the storage part as being storing renewable power in the gas grid for renewable heat. But then those units can have dispensers on them, which then supplies to vehicles. Okay, you get maximum utilization then of all of the equipment. Okay, so we make hydrogen on site on refueling stations primarily because from electrolysis you don't have to clean the hydrogen. You can make it on site and use it for grid balancing, and there's no carbon in transporting it there or any tankers to drive through inner cities delivering it.
And then what about the heating of a car?
Sorry,
the heating? For example, when you have an electric powered vehicle, then the heating is not by the battery. Some buses have fossil fuels to heat the car, which is kind of paradox, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Look, the whole principle of the hydrogen powertrain is that you can carry more energy than you can using batteries. And you can use that energy in the powertrains for all of the heating and air conditioning on board. The reason you use hydrogen for a vehicle, let me just go into that for a bit. So with a battery, you store all the energy inside the battery. If you want to increase the length of time that you can deliver energy from a battery, you buy more and more batteries. So maybe a 1-hour device in an infrastructure battery. With hydrogen, if you want to deliver the power for a longer period of time, you just make the tank bigger. Okay, so you're separating then the power and the energy rating, which means you can get range and carry more energy, and you can get the energy in faster.
So building up a hydrogen infrastructure then could be useful for hydrogen cars. Are there any other vehicles or methods of transportation which should or could or should use hydrogen technology?
Yeah, so I think the first and most obvious one is buses. You know, one of the key driving forces for hydrogen is air quality in inner cities, and all the inner cities procure buses. Okay, we just won our first major bus project in Birmingham, utilising a 3 megawatt electrolyser for 20 buses in Birmingham, and that's a very expandable project. So there are now over 12 bus companies worldwide making hydrogen buses, and the deployment is increasing quite rapidly. So first of all, in Europe, with all the funding that's coming from the FCHJU in terms of hydrogen buses, but also now in Korea and China and also India, we're seeing rapid growth of hydrogen buses. Now, a bus always comes back to the same place to refuel. So you can size a refueling station, you can have a back-to-back contract between renewable power and the gas that you then sell to a tied customer. It means that you have a complete business model that you can finance. They're very different to refueling for vehicles.
So it would work for buses, and then how come in the UK there's still no hydrogen infrastructure? Even in Japan, who seems to be like, it's sometimes called a role model regarding the technology, which has roughly 80 hydrogen stations. How come there's still no sufficient infrastructure?
Yeah, so look, we were founders of a thing called UK H2 Mobility, which was a joint project between infrastructure providers, vehicle OEMs, and the UK government. And the UK government has a target of 65 refueling stations by 2020. We've got 15 publicly open refueling stations. We're building another 8 refueling stations that are already funded. And so there's a considerable number left for the government to fund, but they still have that commitment to 65. Ultimately, in the UK, you need 1,000. Okay, there's 7,000 petrol stations, and you need around the 7th or 14% of those stations to have hydrogen, and then you have a very viable public infrastructure.
And what is the reason that you need less stations? Is that because you can run longer with hydrogen tanks?
Yeah, the whole industry for retailing fuel is changing, as you know. So I think that you need to partner with companies that have fuel retail forecourts, for instance, and we have a fantastic partner in Shell as our forecourt partner in the UK. Also supermarkets. I mean, there's a big trend now for fuel to be retailed by large out-of-town supermarkets. So in the UK, actually, that's an important dynamic that's going on. But today, if you want to hit 100% of the general public, given a particular range, the model tells you, so long as you put it on the highways like the M1, the M4, the M40, and around the M25, you can hit a very large proportion of the general public with only 1/7 of the amount of those petrol stations being covered.
And what you just said, it seems crazy to me. So you can buy fuel now in the supermarket. So wouldn't you wish that you could buy hydrogen bottled in the supermarket?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend that. I think that what I'm talking about is the large car parks that retail fuel with a petrol station outside of a supermarket. So I think what you have to look at is the way that retailing fuel is changing, and you have to look at the horizon. I mean, we look at the medium horizon, not necessarily the long-term horizon, but for us, it's about deploying equipment now to enable the industry to grow, so it will grow further. Because in the future, you're not going to have diesel cars in inner cities. This is, to me, it's very clear that that is unacceptable.
And then, so ITM Power, the way you say it, is one of the driving forces to build up a hydrogen infrastructure. Who else is motivated? So who's really pushing, and who needs to push more?
Yeah. So look, the involvement of large oil and gas companies and the involvement of electricity utilities and the involvement of gas distribution companies is vitally important. Actually, you need big players, particularly from the oil and gas industry, because they can deploy capital to get the thing going. Hydrogen and fuel cells for a long time has been a cottage industry. It isn't anymore. You now have major OEMs, you have national policy, you have national plans, and you have oil and gas companies, power utilities involved. It's totally changed from the way that it looked only 5 years ago.
And you already mentioned that you're partnering with Shell with one of the first hydrogen stations in the UK.
Yeah.
And then, how can you imagine from a big picture view, what the future look like in terms of energy, both in the UK but also in Europe?
Okay, so if I start with the electricity industry, we need more and more renewable power. Renewable power is intermittent. You need more and more energy storage. The best way of storing energy is to change the energy vector from the electron to hydrogen, which is easy to store. You can store it in the gas grid, or you can put it in tanks, you can put it in vehicles. It's very versatile. Okay, so I imagine an energy future which is a bit more joined up than the energy industry is today. I imagine an energy industry where the electricity industry is working in conjunction with the gas industry and also the fuel industry. Because in the world, energy is the largest industry. You have to do transport, you have to do heat, and you have to do electricity. They're the three. And the vector that plays between all three of those is hydrogen, or the electron.
If so, when will the entire country of the United Kingdom will be able to run 100% on renewables?
Yeah, so look, the 100% renewable future is a very laudable goal. Getting a 100% renewable future at the right price that works effectively for everybody is also a very important goal as well. So we always look for 100% of the solution. Actually, we just need to start building things, making things happen. And one of the things you can do is you spend all your life with a piece of paper working out how to do something 100% of the time and never get any experience or build anything. And this is the problem with politics, is 4-year cycles. The need for the 100% solution stops people from actually getting on and building. At ITM, we finance projects and we build things, and that's why we're successful.
Are there any questions from the audience at this time? Well, I do have a question, and if you have one, just raise your hand. So it seems like regarding the hydrogen industry, there's lots of collaboration going on. It seems like without collaboration, it's really hard to change. The governments are really reluctant to change, so the associations are doing good work, and also any companies that are working together can move forward. So I'm interested who you are looking forward to work with here at the fair.
Yeah, as I said before, our key concern is large energy companies embracing a renewable future. And whether that's oil and gas companies or power utilities or gas companies, they're all of great interest to us. And politically, that's correct as well. Look, I'm a CEO of an SME in Sheffield. I have some interaction with government that's very successful. But if the head of National Grid or Northern Power Networks or one of the oil and gas companies talks to a politician, they take it more seriously. And that's why we need partnerships with those large companies. It's about credibility and it's about influence.
And then speaking of political issues, do you think that Brexit will affect your business?
Yeah, I think what's very important now for the UK is to keep all of its relationships in the European science and technology community. That's actually fundamentally important. So whenever I talk to politicians in the UK, I impress upon them the need to remain in Horizon 2020. I think that's fundamentally important. I've had many conversations like that, and in fact, David Davis, who's the Brexit minister, has gone on Hansard, which is our notes from Parliament, as saying that the UK intends to stay in Horizon 2020. And I think anyone who's interested in science and technology and development in the UK is right behind that.
Yeah. A very true point. I'm sorry, we are already out of time, so we have to close the session here on stage, but the talk can continue at the booth of ITM Power, which is just on the right of the public forum, and the number is B68.
Yeah, it's in fact just there.
And then you're very welcome to join Dr. Graham Cooley there. You see he's a very knowledgeable man, and you can approach him. He has an answer to any question you have, I'm certain. So once again, thank you very much. That was Dr. Graham Cooley by ITM Power. And please stay seated. We'll continue on a topic called nickel metal hydride bipolar battery technology, energy storage that are safe and environmentally friendly. And for that, you will have the chance to listen to the head of the product management, Nila Batteries, with Mr. Magnus Dahlen. Thank you.